The Germans had methamphetamine in their chocolate. They called it Panzer Chocolate, tank chocolate. The Americans engineered a bar that tasted like cardboard on purpose. And a tin can that started with Napoleon ended up feeding billions. The instant coffee in your kitchen this morning, the vitamins in your cereal, the Spam that South Korea gives as a luxury gift. All of it. Born in the most destructive war in human history. This is part 2. In the spring of 1937, the United States Army approached the Hershey Chocolate Company with an unusual brief. They needed a chocolate bar, but not the kind that tasted good. Maximum caloric density, heat-resistant, pocket-sized. And it had to taste only slightly better than a boiled potato, so soldiers wouldn't want to eat it. Until they had no choice. The result was the Field Ration D, a 4-ounce bar of 600 calories, the texture of a clay brick, dense, unyielding, resistant to the jaw. The taste sat somewhere between bitter chalk and mild regret. Soldiers across every theater described it in terms that cannot be fully repeated here, so soldiers wouldn't want to eat it. Until they had no choice. It was produced in the hundreds of millions, but the story of military chocolate has a darker chapter. German pharmaceutical companies produced a stimulant chocolate for Luftwaffe pilots and Waffen-SS troops, marketed as Coca-Cola. It contained cocaine, designed to suppress fatigue and sustain alertness during extended operations. The line between nutrition and chemical stimulation had been crossed, and no one on any side was particularly surprised. Before this technology existed, armies died before they even reached the battlefield. Not from bullets, not from enemy fire, from food that had rotted in transit, from supply lines that collapsed under their own weight. From the simple, brutal fact that feeding an army on the move was, for most of human history, an unsolved problem. The tin can sitting in your kitchen cupboard right now is a technology born from war. Specifically, Napoleon's war. In 1795, Bonaparte offered 12,000 francs to anyone who could preserve food for his armies. A Parisian confectioner named Nicolas Appert won the prize 15 years later. He sealed food in glass jars, heated them, and discovered they remained edible for months. He did not understand why. The germ theory of disease was still decades away. He only knew that heat and sealing worked. Within a decade, an Englishman named Peter Durand replaced the glass with tin. The modern can was born, and by 1939, canning had become the industrial foundation of military food supply across every major power on Earth. The United States alone produced billions of tin cans per year during the war. Automobile factories retooled overnight. The Campbell Soup Company, Hormel, Swift, Armour, civilian brands became, in effect, military contractors. In 1943, the United States spent more feeding its military than the entire GDP of most nations on Earth. Food production was war production. The factory line was the front line. The British Army's relationship with food was a mirror held up to its relationship with class. In the First World War, officers ate in regimental messes with silver cutlery and starched linen. Their men ate cold bully beef from tins in trenches filled with mud and rats. The distance between the two plates was not measured in meters. It was measured in centuries. By 1939, the army had standardized. The composite ration, the compo, was issued in 14-man packs. Tinned steak and kidney pudding, tinned bacon, oatmeal blocks, margarine, hard-tack biscuits that could survive a monsoon, and non-negotiable tea. Tea was not a luxury in the British military. It was operational infrastructure. The Army issued a specially blended service blend, engineered to taste consistent, regardless of the mineral content of local water, from the Sahara to the Burmese jungle to the North Atlantic. A proper cup of tea was not sentiment. It was a morale instrument of war. Food historian Lizzie Collingham identified a profound irony at the heart of British wartime rationing. For the working class and the poor, rationing actually improved nutrition. For the first time in British history, every citizen received a guaranteed minimum caloric allocation. The war that bankrupted the nation also, in its grim bureaucratic way, fed its hungriest people, not on the front, but at home. On the front, British soldiers ate what there was, and complained about it with an inventiveness that can only be described as a national art form. At the beginning of this episode, we said one army had already lost the war by 1943 without knowing it. It was the German Sixth Army at Stalingrad. And the weapon that defeated them was not a Soviet tank division. It was a calorie deficit. By 1944, every major military power had confirmed what food scientists had argued for decades. What a soldier eats determines what a soldier can do. 72 hours. After 72 hours without adequate food, the human brain loses its capacity for rational risk assessment. Fine motor skills degrade. Decision-making becomes erratic. Aggression spikes, but combat effectiveness collapses. A hungry soldier is not a brave soldier. A hungry soldier is a soldier whose brain is burning its last reserves of glucose and making desperate calculations. The German command at Stalingrad knew this, and chose to lie. Hermann Göring promised an airlift of 500 tons per day to the encircled Sixth Army. Do the math. 90 tons, 300,000 men. On the Allied side, food became a weapon in a more calculated way. Leaflets dropped over German lines described, in clinical detail, the meals that German prisoners of war were receiving in American camps. Hot coffee, fresh bread, meat twice a week. The message was not subtle. Surrender and eat. It worked. Not always. Not immediately. But it worked. The Second World War did not only destroy, it invented. Freeze-drying was developed to preserve blood plasma for wounded soldiers. After the war, it was adapted for food. Today, it is the technology behind every instant coffee sachet, every camping meal pouch, every astronaut food packet. The process that kept soldiers alive on the operating table now keeps hikers alive on a mountain. Vitamin fortification of staple foods was accelerated by the discovery that American soldiers in tropical theaters were developing severe deficiencies. The systematic addition of B vitamins, vitamin C, and niacin to military rations became, after the war, the global standard for civilian food production. The fortified cereal in your kitchen cabinet this morning is a direct descendant of that wartime panic. Instant coffee, issued to soldiers on every side, became in the post-war decades one of the most consumed beverages on Earth. The bitter brown powder that men drank in foxholes under artillery fire is now the morning ritual of hundreds of millions. And Spam, that maligned rectangular block of processed pork, became after the war a staple food in the Philippines, South Korea, Hawaii, and across the Pacific. In South Korea today, premium Spam gift sets are given as luxury presents during national holidays. The food that soldiers cursed became a cultural institution. War consumes everything it touches. But occasionally, in the wreckage, it leaves something behind that feeds the world long after the guns go silent. The Second World War ended in the summer of 1945. The last shots were fired. The treaties were signed. The soldiers came home. One of them sat down at a table. In front of him was a plate of food. Real food. Hot food. Food that did not come from a wax-coated box or a dented tin. And for a moment, before he ate, he just looked at it. A generation that had known hunger in their bodies, built in the post-war years the most productive agricultural system the world had ever seen. They filled supermarkets. They invented convenience food. They ensured with almost obsessive determination that their children would never go hungry. Whether they succeeded is a different question for a different time. What we know is this: every war in history has been, at its core, a food war. A competition between supply chains, a test of who can keep their men fed long enough to outlast the other side. The Axis powers underestimated the logistics. The Allied powers industrialized them. And the difference between those two choices is measured not only in territory gained or lives lost, but in the simple, ancient, irreducible fact that an army that eats fights, and an army that starves breaks. The soldier from the beginning of this story never stood a chance. If this story changed the way you see the Second World War, leave a like It helps more people find this channel. And if you want to know what the Vikings ate before battle, what the Greeks offered to their gods, what the Aztecs consumed in their darkest rituals, subscribe, because every civilization in history had a story hidden in its food, and we are just getting started.
Next episode, the warriors who figured it out 1,000 years earlier. The Vikings. They ate fermented shark for breakfast and still conquered half the world. Viking food. It's going to get weird.